Hello, how are you doing? In this episode, we're going to take a look at some interesting, surprising myths about learning English. The top 10 myths, in fact. I'm really excited to share them with you. I think you're going to like them. They might make you think about your English fluency in a new way. And let's challenge some of those thoughts that you have about English fluency. I've heard from a lot of learners that say, oh, I really need to learn in a native speaking country. So I can't learn English until I can move to the United States. Seriously, it's not true. If you're planning on moving to the United States, for example, you should probably start learning English before you move there. You don't need to live or even to travel to a native English-speaking country to become fluent in English. There's so many resources, especially online, with so many interesting websites, news sources, video clips that you can watch, movies you can stream, music sites that you can listen to music on. There's so many ways that you can get immersed in English in your living room or wherever is convenient for you. You don't have to be in an English-speaking country. You just need to bring English to you wherever you are. In fact, I know a lot of people who live in the US and they've lived there for years, maybe 10 years, and they still don't speak English. Why? Because they spend their whole day, every day, with people from their own country, speaking their native language. So simply living in the United States is not the secret to fluency. It's a great place to be, don't get me wrong, but fluency has to come from you and your effort and knowing how to become fluent. That's why I'm here to help you. So stop making excuses. This excuse is not valid. You do not need to live in an English-speaking country to become fluent. Okay, the next myth that I'd like to bust is that you have to major in English in university in order to be fluent. Now, this is wrong on so many different levels. Of course, majoring in English can help you with your English, but in a university, you're typically going to study literature and writing and maybe how to become an English teacher. So sure, maybe it's a good idea if you want to be working with those fields, but in fact, if you want to be able to speak English fluently, I would suggest that you don't focus on it at your university. I would suggest if you're taking English classes at a university or a private language school, that's great, but you have to do so much more outside of the class to develop your fluency. And make sure that you're not relying on your textbook, your teacher, or your coursework to make you fluent. You really have to use English outside of the classroom to become fluent. Okay, next, number 3 is really fun. I get a lot of requests from Go Natural English viewers if they could become fluent by marrying an English speaker. Well, you do not need to marry an English speaker, in fact, to become fluent in English. It's great if you can have a connection or friendship or even more with an English speaker, but you do not have to marry an English speaker to become fluent in English. I would suggest to reach out to people with similar interests and discuss those interests with them in English. Maybe you're really into sports. You could find a sports community using social media or maybe a forum online. That's a great way to connect with people. So I would suggest you put your effort into finding people with similar interests who also speak English. Number 4, English is the most difficult language to learn. This is simply not true for most English language learners. So English can be more difficult for some people and easier for some people depending on your native language and depending upon your experience learning languages. If you've already learned another language, it can become easier and easier to learn more languages. And we have to think about the distance between English and your native language. So English is related to other languages like German and Romance languages like Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian. So it will be easier for you, lucky for you, if you speak those languages already, it will be easier to learn English. But for our friends who speak Arabic or Chinese, Japanese, Russian, maybe Thai, it's going to be a little more difficult because we have to learn a new alphabet and sounds that don't exist in your language. But it's a fun challenge. And just think about how much you'll learn about learning languages and also about new cultures. So English could be difficult, but I don't think it's impossible. I know that you can learn English, and I believe in you. Number 5, you have to be rich to learn English fluently because you need to buy years of language classes and tutoring and textbooks and other stuff. Well, it's not true. If you can learn English quickly, easily, and in a fun way, you don't have to waste time and money on it. So what I would suggest is to target whatever money you spend on your learning on something that's going to be effective. And remember that even if you don't want to spend money or you're not in a position to spend money, there's so many great resources online. You're watching Go Natural English right now or listening to the podcast, and there's a lot of amazing resources for learning English online. So remember, you don't have to be rich. Although it's nice if you are, but you don't have to be. Another is that you have to pass a test to become fluent in English. Why do you need a test? Is it maybe for your own confidence? Well, it could be fun. I've taken an English test just for fun, but fluency is determined by you. You have to set your own goals. Now, you might need to take a test for entrance into a university or perhaps for your job. They may like you to have or to prove a certain level of English fluency. And so that's great. It's a great idea to take a test, kind of know your level when you compare to other people around the world. And it's also something that you could put on your resume if you're looking for a job and you want to show your English skills. But if you simply want to be able to speak with others in English, there's no need to take a test. Another myth about English fluency is that you will never, ever sound like a native unless you were born in that country. Let's bust this myth right now because you can learn English fluently and you can develop a great accent if you understand how to do it, if you train your brain to do it, and if you practice. It is possible, even as an adult. Adults even have some advantages to learn English fluently because we understand what language is. We probably understand what grammar is. And so you can compare grammar in your native language to grammar in English. Think about a baby. They don't know what grammar is. Think about even a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old. They don't have the same understanding of grammar or of language that we do. So it's actually an advantage to learn as an adult. And there's things you can do to improve your pronunciation. Check out Go Natural English to help you with your pronunciation as well. And you can become a very clear native-like English speaker. Another myth about English is that you have to completely devote your life to it, like a monk in a monastery. You have to focus on learning English all the time, all or nothing, or you'll never become fluent. This is kind of funny because I think the mindset here has to shift. We have to think of English as a tool to do the things that you want to do in life. So it's great to focus for short periods of time on learning new points in English, but then use it to do other things in life, to go out in the world, to travel, to connect with people, to read up on new topics, or to learn new hobbies. So you don't have to think of yourself as chained to your English textbook. Throw out your textbook and bring your English with you to do the things that you want to do. A very important myth to bust is that you have to give up your native language and your native culture in order to speak English fluently. This is so not true. This is not like having a passport and then, having to give up your citizenship to get a new one or something like that. It's totally possible to Create your new identity in English while you keep your old one. And it's a really valuable skill to have, to be able to speak more than one language, to be able to cross cultures, to understand both deeply. So there's no reason why you have to give up your old language or your culture, your first language. Just think of yourself as having more roles to play. You have more than one character you can play in life. The final 10th myth that we must bust in English is that if you make mistakes, you are not a fluent English speaker. How dare you make mistakes? That is just awful. Native speakers never make mistakes. I never make mistakes. Okay, I'm just being silly. You guys, of course, you're going to make mistakes. Native speakers make mistakes all the time. I can't think of the word, or I stutter, or I stumble, or I, say the wrong thing, or, it happens. Even professional English teachers, it happens. So you have to accept it and just try to improve every time. Making mistakes is actually a great opportunity to improve. So keep making mistakes. They're awesome. So I hope you enjoyed the top 10 myths in English. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. And if you're interested in learning how to become fluent in English, not just busting the myths, but exactly the 7 steps that I use to become fluent, you can find them in our free course at gonaturalenglish.com/7steps. It's the number 7, STEPS. See you there. Bye for now.